A true revival of the Jurassic World is unfolding before our eyes. Having assembled an impressive cast, a talented director, and the screenwriters from the original film, the dinosaurs are once again appearing on the big screen to captivate audiences. Whether they succeeded or not, we will discuss this next, and at the end of the review, we will analyze the film's finale and talk about the prospects for a sequel. It should be noted right away that not everything is as smooth for Rebirth as one might hope. Critics have called it tasteless and exploitative of the franchise's popularity. However, audiences did not agree with this opinion and are gladly going to theaters to see the giant lizards. The situation is generally not new, because critics always seek substance, whereas audiences sometimes simply need a spectacle. But to understand the problem and why the film is simultaneously praised and criticized, it is necessary to turn to its origins. The new Jurassic World was released at a rather symbolic time. The fact is, exactly 50 years ago, the film Jaws by Steven Spielberg premiered. It is this film, as is commonly believed, that established the model for the summer Hollywood blockbuster. In short, the essence was an adventure with a great deal of spectacle and minimal attention to profound philosophical themes. As a result, Jaws became the highest-grossing film at the time of its release and, in essence, defined the genre. The first Jurassic Park, which was also directed by Steven Spielberg, adhered to the same principle. The production team placed emphasis on graphics that were fantastic for the time, and on heroes who found themselves in prehistoric captivity. In the end, the creators managed to produce an iconic film that received universal recognition and established dinosaurs in cinemas for a long time. The subsequent two sequels failed to become as successful, so after some time the studio decided on a reboot. The new trilogy, led by Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, became an incredible box office hit, with each installment grossing over $1 billion. The principle remained the same: a summer blockbuster showcasing giant lizards across the entire screen. However, the last two films paid too much attention to subtext and the theme of mutations, which is why they received low ratings from both critics and audiences. All of this has led us to the point where we are now. Jurassic World Rebirth was conceived as a combination of the best parts of the franchise, specifically the first films of both trilogies. The studio wanted to combine a large-scale spectacle with a more localized story, focusing on the character's journey. For these purposes, first, they invited the screenwriters of the original Jurassic Park. David Koepp and Michael Crichton, indeed, tried to make the narrative flow very similar to the very first film. This is felt in the delivery of the material, in the tension and threat emanating from the dinosaurs, as well as in the characters, who are distinct from one another. At the same time, they did not forget to include humor, which is distributed evenly throughout the film and does not disrupt the overall tone. The story also became localized, with a minimal number of characters and a clear trajectory. Second, Universal Studios hired director Gareth Edwards, who gained prominence with Rogue One and Godzilla. He also knows how to film interesting stories and works well with high-quality computer graphics. And to ensure all of this worked and looked convincing, they cast Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali in the lead roles. But, as you understand, prominent names alone are not enough for a project to achieve success. Rebirth is an excellent summer blockbuster in almost all respects. It is unlikely to become the most profitable, like the first film with Pratt, and it certainly will not receive an Oscar, like the very first Park. But what it will definitely accomplish is engaging the viewer for 2 hours. The new Jurassic World suffers from problems typical of a blockbuster, which is why critics disliked it. It has an absolutely simple plot, chronicling the journey of heroes from point A to point B with virtually no deviations. There is no complex political or dramatic context, nor are there multi-layered characters. Within the first 10 minutes, we understand who is good here, who is bad, who is strong, and who is brave. And one can even guess who will be eaten during the film with a 90% probability. It is for this reason that the film is criticized. It is predictable and does not surprise. However, Rebirth does not attempt to do so. Even during the announcement, the creators stated that they wanted to return to the franchise's origins. The screenwriters tried not to reboot the story, but to place it within the context that had been created by the previous installments. That is why we have a new island, new main characters, but old techniques. The beginning of the film makes a reference to the second trilogy, showing how dinosaurs continue to live among humans. About 10 minutes of screen time are devoted to this, and then we immediately embark with the characters on a tense journey across the island. Incidentally, the musical score is almost entirely built on arrangements from the first film. This, on one hand, gives it the necessary atmosphere, and on the other, inadvertently evokes a sense of nostalgia. The soundtrack appears perfectly appropriate and fully accomplishes its task. Regarding the graphics, there are also no complaints. The computer graphics in all Jurassic Park installments were excellent, and the new film is no exception. The dinosaurs appear at times massive, at times frightening, and at other times quite charming. The debatable point is perhaps related to mutation. It was already clear from the trailers that new hybrids awaited us. This was the reason for the new secret island where experiments were conducted. In this respect, Rebirth was a hostage to its plot, as it could not simply show the familiar dinosaurs. The combination of species was at the core of the trilogy with Chris Pratt. Therefore, the screenwriters did not ignore this story arc. Instead, they made it a part of the story, but one that occurs somewhere in the background, rather than being the objective of the entire plot. Why do we say this? The new type of Tyrannosaurus looks extremely strange, and it is perhaps for the best that it is not the main focus. It is genuinely frightening and looks like a product of an experiment, resembling either an alien or a rancor from Star Wars. But was it truly necessary for the film? For those who have already seen it, please share in the comments what you think of this new species. As for the characters, here too, not everything is so straightforward. Scarlett Johansson plays Zora, a covert operations expert who leads the team. One can argue endlessly about strong female characters, but with all our affection for her, she does not appear as a special operations specialist. Fortunately, she is not portrayed as a superheroine, and if one disregards her backstory, which they attempt to make very dramatic, she turned out to be a quite convincing character. She jokes, gets frightened, and in the action scenes, she appears quite convincing. Ali plays a smuggler with clear moral principles. Again, the question arises, why make him a smuggler if he behaves like a true hero? What was his motivation for breaking the law? However, if one disregards his formal role, Ali is as convincing as ever, and one genuinely worries for him. The paleontologist naturally is delighted by the dinosaurs and acts as an obvious force for good, who can also descend a cliff and extract biomaterials. And this is generally the case with all the characters. There is a sense that the screenwriters tried to give them depth through conversations about the past, but it was not very convincing. The family's storyline, however, proved to be the most intense because they have no combat training. At the same time, the scenes with the little girl and her pet dinosaur are genuinely endearing. However, here too, a question of logic arises. What was the head of the family expecting when he sailed past an island with dinosaurs? Overall, from a plot perspective, there are questions about the film. The characters' actions do not always seem logical, but how the film will end is fairly easy to guess. Yet, even with all this, Rebirth perfectly accomplishes. It is a good film that will not become the best in the franchise, but which will certainly be interesting to fans of prehistoric lizards. Therefore, if you are hesitating about whether to watch it, it is definitely worth it. But do not expect too much. It is a fun attraction that at times manages to maintain suspense. And now, a few words about whether there will be a sequel. No overt spoilers are planned, but watch at your own risk. The new Jurassic World was not initially positioned as a trilogy. This is supported by the absence of a post-credits scene, which was present in the second trilogy. The director wanted to make a standalone project that, in case of success, could easily be extended for another 2 films. 2 plot lines that remain after viewing point to this. First, Martin Krebs mentioned how influential his superior is. He is unlikely to be pleased that his expensive secret operation has failed. This means he could act as the main antagonist in the next installment. Second, the appearance of the mutated T-Rex could be used to obtain some form of cure from its blood. Krebs' superior could force the heroes to return to the island to find it, as they prevented him from carrying out his initial plans. And let us not forget the cure itself that they planned to create. Its appearance could, like a snowball effect, cause an influx of smugglers to the island. Thus, a whole hunt for dinosaurs on their own territory would unfold, which would not end well. There are options for plot development, but now everything depends on the final box office returns. The film had a good start, and critics' reviews, as we know, do not determine a project's success or failure. Therefore, we are monitoring how the new Jurassic World will perform at the box office. In just a week, Superman will be released in theaters, and then the Fantastic Four. Therefore, the competition will be immense, and Rebirth does not have much time to recoup its budget and demonstrate its viability. In the meantime, please be sure to share your viewing impressions in the comments and whether you are ready to wait for a sequel. That's all for today, friends. Subscribe and don't miss new episodes, and see you soon.